And around the world watching us, we are on your favorite Sunday midday program, Press R. On today's edition of the program, we have two topics as usual. What about the transfers of teachers and clandestine schools at this point when so many teachers have already started teaching and some children are already enrolled into the various schools? We're going to look at what it causes psychologically, what it also causes these people, from parents to teachers to children, physically and financially. We'll look at that, and we also have another bi-topic on that, clandestine schools, which goes in line with that. Some of them may be closed as usual at the time. So many children are already enrolled. What about these children? We'll have answers to some of these questions in this program. So stay there, stand by. We have a second topic, which is what so many of you have acclaimed over the years: technical education as the key to the emergence of the country. ICTs and education, why are we not moving along with this? We're going to discuss these two topics with eminent people who are experts in the topics. I introduce the panel, beginning with Professor Beban Sambi Chumbo. Welcome to the program.
It's a great pleasure.
It's our honor, Prof. We have another professor, Professor Victor Barika. Welcome to the program.
Thanks. I'm honored to be here.
Yes, I must let you complete this introduction because you come from far.
Yeah, the last time you talked with me, we talked from Greenville, North Carolina, and I just came in from the U.S., and I've had a good time so far.
Welcome back home.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, we're honored to have you on the set. We have Christian, publisher of the only English language daily in Cameroon, the Guardian Post. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, the pleasure is mine.
Yeah, we have Richard, the publisher of the Herald Tribune, who will be joining us any moment from now. We are told he's already sitting and standing by. But before we bring him in, the first thing on the program is the weekend review in our regular slot press review, done for us by Cynthia Saptala.
News from the press this week began with the resumption of schools for the 2020-2021 academic year. After the long break caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, most papers headlined on the return of students and pupils to their classrooms, with government demanding a reinforcement of barrier measures and vigilance. On the subject, Tuesday's edition of the Guardian Post mentioned a remarkable improvement in school registration in the northwest and southwest regions. In the article, despite calls for boycott by separatists, thousands of learners and teachers showed up in schools. In another article of Monday's edition of The Horizon, Bamenda parents decry the lack of funds and call for government action to a safe school year. Other major news this week was the publication by Elecam of candidates accepted and rejected for the December 6th Regional Council elections. Going by Monday's edition of the Post, 106 divisional delegates and 111 traditional rulers will compete in the maiden regional elections. Following the publication, candidates whose lists have been rejected have 5 days to file petitions to the administrative court. Based on Cameroon Tribune, with the deadline of October 7 that elapsed, the court will begin hearings, and according to the law, they have 7 days to give a ruling on the different complaints filed. With the regional elections approaching, Cameroon Tribune headlined on Wednesday's edition the first ordinary session of the National Decentralization Board for the year 2020, where Prime Minister Joseph Dion-Gote and members examined the financial and structural conditions to be fulfilled for the implementation of the decentralization process. Another major news in this week's papers was France's offer of 251 million CFA francs to support peace-building initiatives, election participation, and environmental protection in the northwest and southwest region. Government's offer of 2 billion CFA francs to small and medium-sized enterprises hit by COVID-19 was also reported by the Guardian Post, with the minister presenting eligible criteria and the selection process for businesses concerned. Power changes hands at Pamol, according to the Post Weekender, with the appointment of Solomon Tapembile as general manager. On a sad note, Cameroon's Bar Council President, Bâtonnier Charles Chakunte Patier, is no more. He died in Paris, France, October 4th, 2020, after an illness. Those are some of the stories that made news this week.
Thank you very much, Cynthia Saptala, for that press review. Gentlemen, we're going to go straight into our discussion. The first topic is teachers' transfers and clandestine schools. What about that? We know that's what happens all the time. At the time we speak, we may get up one day this week, next week, and hear that there's a delegation going down to close schools where you already have children well enrolled and attending classes. There are innocent victims, parents suffer, all of that. We hope that does not happen this time. It has been taking control. When you hear such a thing happens, Prof, how do you feel?
Well, legitimacy is important and a must for a nation that believes in the rule of law. And I don't think it's tolerable to have schools that are clandestine, no matter the circumstances. But I do know that for a while that has been the case. The idea has been given, and many people believe that the best way of starting a school is to start first and then start submitting your papers along the lines. It depends on what government really has as rules and regulations. I know that for the higher education, the rules are very clear. You get an authorization to create, which enables you to start doing things, and then authorization to open. I think it's the same thing with the basic education and secondary education. And I think what's important is that we should, government should do everything to ensure that it becomes a culture. Okay. Namely that you prepare well in advance and get authorized to start.
Unfortunately, some people don't follow that. Prof, when you hear such things here, look at it from a comparative point of view, yes, where you are based. How do you feel? Well,
it's rather unfortunate that some folks would start schools that are not authorized. You see, the truth is nobody wants to obey the law naturally. As human beings, we want to disobey or cut corners. But being someone in education and that really believes in high quality education, government rules may not be comfortable, but they help maintain some level of standards which we all need to abide with. As Professor Chumbo rightly said, we have the same rules in higher education. You can't just run an institution like that. Obviously, in the US, it's much more controlled because it could be criminal. For you to do that. I mean, you could literally go to jail for that.
Sanctions follow.
Yeah. So we believe in having our kids get the best possible education, and that is why even in the case of the U.S., like where my kids go to school, Trinity Baptist School, they are actually they have to go through accreditation even after they start. They have to go through an accreditation body for Christian primary and secondary schools, in addition to the government rules.
Thank you. Richard Nde, when you hear Professor Victor Mbarika speaks, he hits one point there, sanctions. Is that why we lack?
Actually, that's what...
Severe sanctions, I mean, not just closing down schools.
Yeah, I think we lack that in Cameroon, within the Cameroon circles. Because every day we hear that this or that school is being sanctioned as operating illegally and has to be closed. But how many of these schools actually have been closed within the past years? You mentioned a while ago that maybe at the beginning of this academic year we've not heard anything about illegal schools, but don't be surprised, one month into the academic year, you start hearing that certain schools have been closed because they have not been able to meet up with the necessary documents. And before you realize, 2 days after, those same schools that were probably closed just for a day will go operational. And parents, sometimes are too, don't understand, they don't have knowledge to find out or to know which are those legal schools and which are those that are illegal. They just send their children to those schools, whether it is a legal or an illegal school, but before they realize, they are being told that that school has not been registered. Prof said, normally there is a procedure. You have an authorization to create and an authorization to operate. But once people have that authorization to create, they start functioning. They open their doors, start admitting children. Huge sums of money is collected from parents, and before long, you see the same parents start shouting that maybe there are sanctions waiting for this school. So I think governments should be proactive and actually sanction, because when you sanction, it is going to serve as a deterrent for others.
Now, Christian, the paradox that prevails is that government needs to see schools start in order to actually know that this school is open. So it generally comes when schools have started. So where should the responsibility come from to be proactive? How do we do this?
I think, without any waste of time, I think the problem lies with the way our government functions. The school milieu or the educational sector, it is like the microfinance sector. Normally, at the beginning of every year, the Ministry of Finance publishes a list of authorized microfinance institutions. We expect the government to do so 2 weeks or 1 month to the beginning of every academic year. It should even be done by subdivision at the subdivisional levels, where every subdivisional delegate of education, be they secondary or primary, they publish a list of authorized institutions that have to function. That way, parents can even cross-check, and you can even, if you don't want to use a newspaper because it's more expensive to make those lists public, you can use local radio stations and some of these community radio stations to announce that these are the schools that have been authorized by government to function within this subdivision.
Now, Prof, he is talking about parents who may not be able to decipher just looking at a school with all the adverts and cajoling messages that go around. A parent may not be able to know because some of those schools really look real. What can be done for parents to know and make sure they become victims, their children become innocent victims?
Well, let me say that from what you said earlier, for schools to begin, you don't have to wait to see how they are functioning before you approve them, because the regulations for opening provide for minimum standards that must be met, and inspection has to be done by the authorities. And once that is done, then you know that institution has the minimum standards. It's true that during the process of the school opening, there should be another team to inspect to see how well the school is functioning.
Okay.
But the authorization for functioning can be done on the basis of what is expected of a school to function in terms of readiness with the classrooms respecting standards. Now with distanciation, you know that you have enough tables and chairs within to respect the barrier measures and so on. So that those instructions are okay. Now, the parents would depend essentially on information, and information is crucial. Information can come from government, can come from the local government. I think that with the decentralization, where the governance is closer to the people, there should be a concern by the municipalities to ensure, to take upon themselves the role of informing the community what schools are approved within that community. So it's going to be easier if the municipalities do what they're supposed to do. And I'm glad that recently the PM emphasized the need to transfer to the all of the potencies that are envisaged for the municipalities so that they can have what it takes to function.
Thank you, Prof. One other thing that is almost the same like this is the transfer of teachers that come at this time. But before we move to the transfer of teachers, when children are already enrolled in a school and the authorities go down and discover that the school does not meet the conditions to create and to operate, and the children are already enrolled, can we say that the authorities allowed the children who are innocent from a kind of position of jurisprudence?
Well, allowing the children to continue, it's again promoting illegality. It will not serve as a lesson for others. First, those who have these schools, they're out to make money, and behold, they will not even refund the money. I think the first thing is once it happens like that, the parents should withdraw their children and take to the schools that have been authorized. If we allow,
if only we have the chances, because that's a very big problem.
Killian, if you say temper justice with mercy, it will continue, and it has been happening year in, year out.
Yes, briefly before we move on.
This is what, in my opinion, should be done. You know, sometimes there is a lot of dirty work that goes on between proprietors of private schools and some of those so-called inspectors.
Oh, okay.
We need to see a government that actually, we were talking about severe sanctions. Good. It is not only, the sanctions should not just be against the proprietors of those schools. If you investigate very well, you will see that those proprietors are working in collaboration with some officials, I think, in the Ministry of either basic or secondary education.
It's well said.
And what is a chain? And what we are saying here is that we have not had a case where a school has been shut down and the proprietor is arrested and then is released only on the basis that the school fee that was paid has been reimbursed.
Yeah, since you are talking, I will just ask you also, when you hear that, like now, we had some teachers transferred this week.
Yeah.
Schools have reopened and they have enrolled, they've started teaching. It means sometimes they have paid rents up front 1 year, 6 months, 1 year, and they are transferred to other areas. It's another problem. When you hear that, what do you say to those who do that in terms of feeling for those who are concerned?
I think, you know, the problem, especially with the secondary education, to me, it lies with the method in which teachers are transferred. Why don't you inform them within the holiday period, instead of waiting for schools to begin for 1 week or 2 weeks, and then that's when the transfer decision comes out?
Okay, I have indications that, yes, you continue, that we have our special viewer standing by. Somebody is standing by, our special viewer, who needs to tell us exactly what the situation is. If he is on, can we see him? Okay, you can continue. Okay, we have our special viewer standing by, Mr. Wango Daniel. What is the situation of transfers? You are a trade unionist, teachers trade unionist.
The personnel of the central services of the Ministry of Basic Education and Secondary Education were recently transferred, including some regional delegates. This was done taking into consideration the COVID-19 pandemic situation, and which also, you know, enables us to implement some distance measures, some measures that were put in place or have been put in place by the Prime Minister and head of government. So this has created a situation where the Ministry of Basic Education and Secondary Education did not want to create a vacuum, you know, in the devolved services, beginning to move teachers when we all know that we are all struggling to fight the pandemic it is going to create another problem. So they want to study the situation and then follow up on the necessary solutions.
Okay, thank you. You stand by, Mr. Wango Daniel. We are happy to hear that the Ministry of Secondary Education already took these measures that we may not have any massive transfers again. But we want you to tell us exactly what happened, because you have said selective transfers at least. How these people get affected when they are transferred at the time schools have already opened?
The Cameroon Teachers Trade Union, CATU, is very much concerned about this issue of late transfers of teachers. And on a personal note, I feel that when teachers are transferred in the beginning of the academic year, it is much better, because it's not going to create a psychological problem to the teacher, who is first of all a family head, because when a psychological problem is created, the teacher is supposed to prepare not only his mind, but equally prepare his spouse and prepare his children on how to move out of their current situation into a new area. So psychologically, it creates a problem to all the teachers. Secondly, it creates a financial problem. You know, when you are transferred, you know, the transfer allowances are not paid immediately. It is not automatic. So you have to look for money to transfer your family out of your station into your new station. Thirdly, the climatic condition of your new station may not be favorable. And so putting all these components together, it is better advisable that transfers of teachers are done quite early enough before we resume in the new academic year. It's going to take good care of all of this.
Okay, we hope that that happens, Mr. Wango Daniel. We advise you not to go away. Stand by when we'll be discussing the second topic. If you are still around, we'll call you. You listen to him speak, Prof.
Right. Can I just, I didn't finish, please. Let me just say something.
Yes, go ahead.
The feeling I have is that we have a situation in Cameroon where things are done, you know, over and over. There is no... people don't have that idea of trying to adapt to changing situations. Let me explain. Let me take the case of the Northwest and Southwest regions. I think that a good education policy, primary and secondary, you know that within the context of the crisis that we have there now, most teachers have left their teaching stations. Some have fled out of the country, some are in other part of this country. I think the proper thing these two ministries concerned with basic and secondary education should have done way before schools reopen will have been to send teams down to the various schools to do some kind of head count of the teachers who are present, so that you know that this school does not have this number of teachers or the required number of teachers.
How would that be done when schools have not reopened?
You can summon them to come for like 1 or 2 weeks to school reopening. And you do that with the collaboration of the school head.
Yeah.
So that you know the exact number of teachers in a school. Because you cannot just be looking at their list and you say GHS Santa or GBHS Santa, for instance, has 30 teachers. You are counting, you are basing your statistics on the list in front of you, but on the ground, the teachers are not there.
Thank you. We got your point.
But I think they should depend on the statistics that is given to them by the divisional delegate in this case of secondary education and the inspectorate in the case of primary education, because they should have a daily record of the teachers that are effectively present in the various schools.
Yes, Prof, when he was talking about the problems of transfers, he mentioned financial. He even said psychological, that could even be more deadly than financial. Where is the place for incentive when you're sending these teachers to some other places that are difficult environment? He also talked about that.
Well, it depends on the rules of the game. Every game has its rules. And if you're talking about incentives, is there provision and provision for incentives for transfer. What you are saying from your question,
yeah, let me just take,
it is that
for example, we have conflict zones, we have
right.
difficult, we have Bakassi.
Correct.
Getting
yes.
there is very difficult.
Yes, all right.
They cannot earn the same amount
okay.
of money that people here earned in Yaoundé,
yes,
in
yes,
the
yes.
big towns around. We have now in Northwest, Southwest, people have to go through special measures.
Yes.
The place of incentive.
Well, what we are saying, let me begin by anchoring on what he said, because decisions should be taken on the basis of information, okay. accurate information. And we're going to talk about that now. We are in the age where if you take decisions that are not based on accurate and proper information, your decision is going to be flawed. Yeah. And therefore, with respect to transfers, the chain of authority from the director of human resources in the ministry to the delegates, to the principals and censors and all of those people, the information should come in, and it's required to come in so that decisions are done en connaissance de cause, as we say. And it is in that respect that we can now know that some teachers are absent and the reason why they're absent, and then it should be possible then to see what incentives can be given for those who have suffered hardship. For instance, we do know that, and I do know that for the University of Bamenda, for which I have some partial responsibility, there are lecturers who were threatened.
Full responsibility.
Yes, they were actually kidnapped, and because of the psychological problems they had, we officially allowed them to go away and get over the situation before coming back. So I think that it's all of this information that is needed at the level of the ministries for decisions to be taken, which will include the kinds of decisions that will take into consideration psychological problems of teachers in the
Thank you, Prof.
and financial hardship.
Pro-Chancellor is a heavy responsibility. Yes. Now, he just talked about making sure that the presence, effective presence of teachers and the rest are checked. We are not yet going to ICTs, but it has something to do with this. What can be done for people to be controlled real time on their job?
Yeah, let me preface this by saying something we've not talked about. In a pandemic situation like COVID, and I'm not like backing the government or anything, all the governments around the world, they've had terrible difficulties dealing with the situation. So no solution would make everybody happy.
Okay.
I mean, I've not taught for about a year and a half, but I got back to class this year and I started teaching, and within 2 weeks we had to go back online because 4 of my students had COVID. They tested positive.
Jesus.
So we could not continue. So it's not the most comfortable. I like to be in front of my students. That's the way I love teaching. So let's cool down a little bit on this. The fact is, no matter what government it is, managing a pandemic is difficult. So if those decisions had to be taken at the last minute, now unless you tell me this has been the practice every year,
no, of course.
But
well, it has been happening.
Situation,
it's something that has been running.
But it makes it even worse in pandemic situation because you have to create the social distancing and things like that in school. So. Coming now, also when Professor Chumbo was talking, it's like you read my mind. There are technology measures that can be taken by not necessarily. I hate to always say government, but private sector has the capacity to help. Just like it's done in the United States, a lot of private companies that make a lot of money should step up and help the government have things like e-governance systems
where that people are marked present real time.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. It could be an e-governance website that is managed by the Ministry of Basic Education. There are many IT companies in Cameroon that can offer that to the government. It's not a difficult thing. In fact, even us as ICT University, we can build that for the government. But the purpose of e-governance is to be able to create a platform where the citizens are informed in real time. And by the way, working with the phone companies, the mobile phone companies, the e-governance systems are linked to the mobile phone companies, where information put on the website, we say, okay, a woman from my dear village, Zangtabi, how will she know about it? But in Zangtabi, the women have mobile phones.
They
do have. It's automatically sent to them. This is what is happening. The teachers send this information. So e-governance is something which needs to really be considered. And countries like Rwanda, by the way, are really practicing
that.
Yes.
So we are not very different. We have to apply that e-governance. I think I've attended so many debates, seminars, workshops here where government was actually working in that direction. It has not been applied. We just hope that it's going to.
I just wanted to,
briefly
before we move out of this topic, to say that I'm sure the Ministry of Secondary Education, for instance, would.
We want to talk about all the
yes, because there's a lot of negotiations, backdoor negotiations between teachers and school principals. You are supposed to be teaching in Marwa. You stay in your comfort zone, and at the end of every month, we have done that investigation. At the end of every month, you send a small envelope to your principal, and you never go to class for the whole year. I think the Minister
last week, I think I can stop you there. Yeah. Last week, it's good that you raised that point. It's very pertinent. Last week, we had officials from the Ministry of Basic Education, the Minister himself, and the Secretary General of the Ministry of Secondary Education. They gave the website and a number which you can call to report any malpractice in any school, any malpractice of any form. I think Cameroonians should do that.
Absolutely.
If at the end of the program I get that. Yes, I will give you. With that, Richard, we're going to move out of this topic to get into the new topic. We're going to look at education and ICTs and see whether or not there is a missing link. Just after this. Welcome back. I begin with you, Professor Victor Mbarika. You are an ICT expert.
Thank you.
When we talk about ICT, I know it may look so banal. What do we mean by ICT?
ICT is a very broad term to cover information and communication technologies. Goes beyond the creation of the technologies to also managing the technologies appropriately, because it's not all about getting the latest high-tech gadgets. It's about how you manage those in a way that would benefit not just the big name companies. I keep repeating this because in the beginning, ICTs were created for big multinationals to enable them to do business. Now, with what we talk about, Internet of Things is now coming to how you and I, and even the woman on the street, can improve on their marketing using their mobile phones. So that's the beauty of ICTs. We started all with mathematics and computer science, hardcore computer science. Now it is moved from that to how this impacts people and society. Yes,
ICTs, we're just giving the short form of it, information communication technologies. That's what the abbreviation stands for. Now it is said that ICT, we have been clamoring, we withdrew somehow on technical education in the country because you agree with me, some of the efforts that were made, we don't have the same efforts here.
Correct.
And it said that emergence comes with technology, yes. Technical education. We don't much have that here.
Yes.
What is it that is the problem?
Well, it's a huge mistake. Going through school in Cameroon, and I went through school free, going through government schools. I was the only one in my family. I didn't go to boarding school. I remember this very well. If you went to technical school, you were considered not as intelligent as those of us that went to regular secondary schools. That's a huge error. A country, some of the most developed countries have really put in a lot in technical or vocational education to make sure that people can really do things for society that are practical. If your fridge goes bad, I mean, you need somebody that can come in and fix it there, not somebody that will come and dictate notes on who was Hitler and how great he was or bad he was. it cannot be ignored. And I really think it's not only a Cameroon problem, but all over sub-Saharan Africa. The emphasis on I want my child to become a medical doctor, I want my child to become an engineer, I want my child to be all these big things, and rarely somebody will say, I want my child to become the best carpenter. It's affecting us very badly and putting people on the streets with degrees to be riding motorbikes. So it's a huge error. But I believe from what I'm reading, the issue of technical education is being promoted by quite a number of African countries, including Cameroon now.
A lot of it, after having ignored, we are coming back to it. Just following what you said, that at one point when you were younger, those who went to technical schools were considered a dumping ground somehow. Prof, should we then say that we got it wrong from the beginning?
Well, I think the first thing we should do on this platform is to recognize the times in which we're living. We're living in the 21st century, which is considered widely as the age of information and communication technology. What does that mean? It means that knowledge is what rules the world. Those countries that are great, like America, France, and so on, if you want to find out what are the determinants of their greatness, it is the fact that they produce knowledge of a high level in terms of quantity and quality, so that they can provide easy and better life for their citizens. So knowledge production, knowledge dissemination, and then appropriation of this knowledge by the citizens so that they can live well. That is what is essential. And when you now look at that framework and say that the world is determined by that, and even the emergence that we are looking for in 2035 has to do with being able to produce and disseminate knowledge that will enable the quality of life to change.
When you look at that, then that's getting that?
Yes, that's precisely why we can now say, given the objectives of life in this century and our even development plan that aims at emergence, we will then have to go back and see to what extent the strategic development plans we have will lead us to that kind of situation. And then we will now have to say there are things to correct, including the need for us to focus on knowledge, production, science, and technology, which are the engines and motor of development. And that's when you now know that to ensure the availability of this knowledge, the technology, you need technicians.
Yes,
and then that's where you now say your technical schools will need also to be given the importance that they deserve, and young people encouraged to go there so that they can help to disseminate knowledge.
When Professor Victor Baraka was talking, he made mention of something which we cannot lose sight of. That we have most of our young, especially boys, commercial motorcycle riders.
Right, I've seen many of my graduates from University of Yaoundé.
With such a situation, are we not forfeiting that technical staff that could take us forward, that you're talking about?
Yes, precisely. This is what we are saying, that right now we have, the education system has a lot of merit. But when we now consider the products that we are putting in the job market and the possibility of the absorption in the job market, then we now have to ensure that there is some basis of collaboration and appropriateness in terms of the products being able to satisfy the needs of the job market. And this is where we now have to review some aspects of our educational curriculum to ensure that we meet the needs of the nation and the needs of the population.
Yes, Christian, simply you are a publisher of a daily newspaper. How is information and communication technology, I don't want to call it new because we know about this news since early 2000s. How is it helping you in your daily publications?
Let me just throw a word on technical education in Cameroon.
Go ahead.
To say that we seem to be laying so much, putting the blame at the doorsteps of students and parents, which is, in my own opinion, very wrong, because government is not doing much to encourage technical education in this country. if you look at the number of government secondary schools that we have in this country, side by side, the government technical schools, you can count them with the finger of the hand.
Now,
and that is just to say that government too. I'm going to answer your question. I'm just saying that government
you continue. We ask our guest to stand by. If he is there, we want to know whether Mr. Wango Daniel is still there. Yes, we want to see him and take him. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying that government should do more to encourage technical education in this country. Because from the creation of the schools that we have, we see that government is rather learning too much, leaning much on general education than the technical education.
Now, let us listen to a teacher. He represents the teachers' trade unions, and he is there in class knowing what teachers go through. What effort, Mr. Wango Daniel?
The introduction of ICTs into the schools in basic education is a new reform. It's a reform that has just been put in place because of the COVID-19 pandemic condition. And all the teachers are called upon to put their hands on deck to implement this decision. And this comes with a lot of challenges, you know, given the low income of some of our teachers. Some are unable to buy a smartphone, others are unable to have access to internet and other electronic gadgets to permit them do their assignments properly. You know, it creates a link between the teacher, the pupils, and the parents. This is a whole package, and therefore the teacher works in class and works out of class. In class, the teacher gives assignments and homework to the children, which are being done at home. And there is also a need for the teachers to create WhatsApp forums to facilitate communication between the teacher and the parents in the classroom and out of the classroom.
Thank you. Don't go away yet, Professor.
I did not answer your question, please.
Let Professor Victor Barakat, you listen to him. He is painting a picture, a real picture of the situation of economic situation of parents in Cameroon. So you see why there is a problem. What do you say to that?
I differ with him a little bit. And I gave a speech on this in Uganda not long ago. See, in our African context, we've always wanted to think we don't have. The truth is, there is some level of technology already existing in Africa that can be used. We are not as poor as we want to present ourselves to be. Now, these same teachers or people that he is saying don't have money, they have Android phones, they have Samsung and iPhones that they are using, which would cost about 200,000-300,000 francs, but they would not invest on a second-hand laptop that you could get for 100,000 francs. They would rather buy an expensive phone to show off with rather than buy a laptop. So I'm sorry, I don't buy this thing of we don't have. The essence is, how do you manage these technologies with what you have in hand?
What he's saying, there are people who identify with him that there are some households where you don't have people with Android phones. That is a fact.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's true that in every society. Prof, you're right in saying that the rural communities, even in the great United States of America, I had a student come in my MBA class who lived in a rural area, and it was his first time to own a laptop in the master's program. Okay, so there are rural areas all over the world that people don't have. The solution of we think development is taking place because everyone in the rural area has something. I think we should calm down a little bit on that. Secondly, we have to realize that the infusion of technologies is not only dependent on the government. I really disagree on these things. Private institutions, private businessmen need to put in bring in people and train them, give them internships. Like, I mean, I'm sure you guys do this in your two great newspapers. You have websites. I've seen it. Your newspapers have websites.
They do have.
You bring in young people. I'm sure you're already doing this, and train them how to run websites of your newspaper. That's a skill, a real skill that they can gain and can help with the infusion.
Can I answer a question now?
Let Prof take the chain. Then after that, you.
Yes, I think that I only agree with Professor Mbarika partially. The responsibility is shared. Government has its responsibility, and I think government is trying to take on its responsibility with a number of challenges that we can talk about some point, because I've had the opportunity to analyze the issue. But it is important to emphasize the fact that there is what you call a social corporate responsibility of the industries and the corporations and the marketing institutions. They have a duty to use some of the money that they get to serve the people and ensure that we have these commodities. But I don't think that we are asking them to do enough about that. The MTNs and Orange and so on could do more with respect to what I know they're doing a little, because there's a lot that they can do to ensure that we are able to democratize access to information and communication technology, which is the main problem. Because the technology is there. We have about 19 million telephones in this country, which is quite high. That's about 83% of our population have telephones. But when you look at the internet penetration, it's about 35%. 35% is really very low, and that's where the actual use of ICT is demonstrated. That's the indicator of our lack of ability to use ICT in such a way that we can appropriate the knowledge that we need to ensure that we improve on the economy of the country.
Before I get to you, Prof, you are touching the core of this topic. Right. Where then is the missing link? We have 35% penetration on internet. We have 89,000. 89% with mobile gadgets.
Mobile gadgets,
so where is the missing link?
The missing link, of course, is like the Mr. Wango did say, getting the training in school and getting the people, the young people in the primary and secondary schools to learn how to use ICT. We have to do a lot more than we're doing. There's quite a lot that is doing, but we have to have a massive training in the use of this. We also have attitudes to be changed. We have to make attitude changes.
Prof, you are forgetting one important thing.
No, there are about 10.
Because the key thing is even the fact that in the rural areas, even sometimes in Yaoundé here, you can go for 4 hours without internet on your phone.
Yes, that's true.
That is a key problem even in this country.
Even electricity and so on. We have all of
connectivity problem.
I think
Killian, I'm sorry. Let me answer your question, because you asked me a very important question about the coming of ICTs and how we run newspapers. And I just wanted to say that it has been a very, very welcome relief, even though it has come with so many things that we see unfiltered on the social media, which is a threat to the traditional media. But however, I'll give you an example. When I used to work for the Herald in Bamenda, that was in 1998, 97. Honestly, it took 2 days for my report to get to Yaoundé. But that is not what we have today.
Real time you send your reports?
Yes. I remember I covered the presidential election in the US in 2016, and every day at the Guardian Post we had updates on whatever was. My reports came within 1 minute.
Yes.
And that was again thanks to the internet connectivity that we don't have here.
Yes.
So we should also look at that. That is very important.
We're going to just to remind our viewers, just to remind our viewers that you're watching Press Hour on CRTV. If you are just joining us, you could get hooked on if you are not in front of any screen, because this is beamed both audio and video. you just click and get connected to CRTV Web Facebook, and you will get us live. We have some of you who have been watching us and taking notes, and you've sent in your reactions that we are going to give you in about 2 minutes. Elvis Deke is already standing here. But before we bring him in, Richard, you were so itchy to react to what Christian said.
Well, not actually to what he said, but I think talking about the education and missing link, when it comes to information and communication technology, I think that our government still has a lot to do as far as that is concerned. A few years back, we all learned over 70 billion francs was spent to import computers that will be given to university students, which today you get into the quarters, those computers are sold for less than 20,000 francs. And if you want to look at even the capacity of those computers, what you have as your Android phone, the capacity is more than that of those computers. So I think government would have used that money to invest, to build a manufacturing company so that those computers can be manufactured and sold here in Cameroon at a far cheaper cost than
one step at a time. That computer, just a fact, that computer is called notebook. Actually, that is what it is called. So, it is.
And how much was spent on that notebook?
No, it is a student's notebook. So
how much was spent on it?
Yeah, but a student notebook, Kilian. But what is the capacity of that notebook?
A notebook.
How much information can it store for a student?
No, you are talking about capacity. We are talking about how much of the taxpayers' money was spent on that notebook.
That's not our topic.
Which result we don't have.
The information communication technology we are talking about. Let us create these companies here in Cameroon, produce and manufacture these things here, and everybody will have it at a cheaper cost.
That's correct.
Yes, thank you very much. I think if we follow that line, we're going to miss out on a number of issues that are crucial to the debate.
Exactly.
With respect to beyond that, okay, we registered that point. Beyond that, I think we need to examine what is happening in the school system with respect to ICT and how can we improve that. And I thought that if we focused on that, we are more likely to provide additional information as to what should be done to ensure what I have called the democratization of access to ICT, because right now it's still a privileged instrument of usage, and that's why only 35% penetration is registered.
Okay.
And if we were to go along those lines, I think I may have something to say.
That is exact. We will have 1 or 2 minutes, but before we come to that, Prof, we receive Elvis Deke here with reactions from our viewers. Elvis, good day. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Kilian.
What do we have?
Let's begin by thanking those who are watching us, like Binglo Flora from Dubai, Zenef, Vulture Elliot for watching us from the United Arab Emirates, Marcel Yang from Kaile in the far north, and Blandine Kowe from Addis Abeba. They will go straight away to Njoakam Augustine, who says, in today's world, ICT is very important in education. The big challenge we're facing is how many students or pupils have access to the gadget. And Biakio Ambalep Josephine says in French, le TIC et l'éducation, il y a un lien. Il suffit juste de valoriser et de promouvoir les innovations et initiatives développées par les jeunes. And Roxington Roxburgh says the Ministry of Secondary Education has brought a lot of innovations in the secondary education system, but little or not has been done to address the pressing worries of teachers. Fondele Foban says there is too much delay with the transfer of new teachers, which has made some of them uncomfortable. And Prince Motapene says in the Ministry of Secondary Education, the present minister, Professor Nalova Lyunga, is responding to transfers and other issues in prompt and responsible manner, unlike before, and this is done through an increased cooperation and coordination amongst the agencies of our ministry through though there is a delay this year. And he continues by saying that most of the clandestine schools are operating due to administrative tolerance.
Okay, well, the last one?
And the last one is Roxington Roxburgh, who responds to what Prince Mutabeme said. by saying that if there's a loophole this year, that doesn't mean that the ministry isn't active and proactive as compared to other systems.
Thank you very much, Elvis. Ladies and gentlemen watching us in Cameroon and around the world, we thank you for your reactions. You can always react promptly, real time on CRTV Facebook each time you have this, and you can watch this program after we end on the same link, CRTV Facebook, CRTV Web Facebook. Now, Prof, I'm going to ask you this. We are fading out of this debate. What is the way forward for ICT in Cameroon?
I will try to be very, very brief. It's very, very direct. I still come back. I will not leave private sector out of the hook. Okay, I don't know the realities of Cameroon. This is just the truth. But all over Africa, everybody is saying government must do, government must do. Private sector must step in and do something. We are talking about not having connectivity. Why would the MTN and Orange be allowed to steal from citizens by not giving them the connectivity they are paying for? When you make a phone call, it doesn't go through, you are still charged. So they must be sanctioned. These phone companies, they must be sanctioned. Okay. Now, in terms of the missing link, let me quickly
let
go.
us say they don't actually steal, that sometimes the connection in Cameroon doesn't come directly from them. We have, it's a cooperation, collaboration with Camtel, some of the...
so Camtel is to blame?
No. There are towers, mobile phone towers, okay? Yes, okay. I don't know where they get...
You can go ahead.
If it's Camtel or whoever is providing it to them, if they want to come out of the agreement with Camtel and have their own satellites bringing in, they are supposed to bring in. We don't have... An MTN customer does not have a contract with Camtel. They have a contract with MTN. MTN must provide what they are saying they are providing. But we're talking about ICTs. We have some technologies already all over Africa. We have to learn how to use what we have. The fact that everybody does not have a car does not mean there's not good transportation in the country.
Okay.
So we have to, hold on. We have to train people how to use it. For example, when the pandemic came, they told professors or lecturers, go online and teach. How do you go online and teach without being trained how to teach online? Professor Chumbo is one of the leaders when he was running, at the time he started running at ICT University,
so
pushed many people to be trained in that.
They have to be trained.
They have to be trained, but even in the courses, they have to be hands-on. Like I will not call the name of the school, but they are training programmers to just write programs and then the market. You have to do it practically on ground.
Yes, the way forward.
I think the way forward first is for government to make things easier for the population, especially when it comes to the ICTs, getting the computers and getting the phones. As we hear that they're going to increase 30% for a phone that you buy. So I think
I got that. The way forward.
The way forward is that we have to make sure that the internet connectivity is very, very stable. You can buy all the computers in the world, but like I said, I've spent 4 hours in Yaoundé without being able to send a message by WhatsApp.
Okay. We have a very big project of the submarine connectivity. We hope it's going to solve that problem. The last word is from you, Prof.
Yes. In addition to what has been said, I think that with respect to the issues within the educational system, there is a need for a core syllabus for the primary and secondary education. And this course syllabus should be compulsory. Right now, ICT is optional.
Okay.
And so just those who are interested. But if it is compulsory, there should be provision, both so that you bridge the gap between the rural communities and the cities, so that there should be a possibility of having everyone have access.
Thank you very much. That's capital. I think it was well calculated for you to end. That's the way forward. Thank you very much, Professor Beban Samuel Chumbo, Professor Victor Mbarakat, Nde Richard, Nga Christian Nga. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
And we also want to thank you for watching. Thank you for your attention. There will be a rebroadcast of this program Monday at 3 p.m. You can watch the program at your convenience if you just hook on to CRTV Web, Facebook. Thanks again. Have a nice day ahead.